Hello, welcome to Nordnet. My name is Roger Bansen and I'm an equity analyst here at Nordnet. With us today, we have Head of Investor Relations at Tomra, who will soon tell us more about the company. But first, Tomra was founded in 1972 and began with the design, manufacturing, and sale of reverse vending machines, panteautomater in Norwegian. Today, Tomra provides technology-led solutions that enable the circular economy with advanced collection and sorting systems that optimize resource recovery and minimize waste in the food, recycling, and mining industry. Okay, Bing, over to you. Please take us deeper into Tomra and the business model.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Bing Zhao. I'm responsible for investor relations in Tomra. And thank you, Nordnet, for the invitation. And we're happy to give you a quick introduction of the company before taking any more specific questions from Roger. So let me just try to set the scene here. Today, we live in an age with the highest level of consumption we've ever seen. This basically means that we are actually over-consuming the resources. If you look at the concept of country overshoot days, that's basically the amount of time it takes to use up all the regenerative resources on Earth every year. Globally, now for the past few years, we've ended up somewhere in July, most likely. But if you take the case of a country like Norway, actually already by April 18th this year, 2020, we have used up all the regenerative resources on Earth for the whole year. So basically, it would actually need almost 3 Earths to actually be able to cater for the consumption pattern of Norway. And clearly, something needs to be done. Obviously, we can talk about changing consumer behavior, but we also need to look into the right technology and solutions to enable less waste and better utilization of the resources. And that has really been the Tomra's vision all the way. We want to lead the resource revolution, and we believe that through doing this, we can also contribute to a better world. So if I try to summarize Tomra in a one page, so where we are present is really within 2 main areas. One is called the circular economy, and the other is called future food. You've probably heard a lot about circular economy these days. There are many corporations that really wants to do good. And for us, this is about, instead of having the material ending up leaking into nature, going into landfill, or just being burnt, we actually want to make sure that the materials are initially collected for recycling and also being recycled in a way that it can become a new product again in a high quality way. So this is really what we mean by circular economy. Instead of the linear approach that the world has been used to, then we actually want to make this into a more circular approach. On the other hand, we also see that a massive amount of food is wasted along the food value chain. In fact, actually, around 1/3 of that happens already in the production stage of the food value chain. So this means that there's clearly a lot that can be done in order to divert the food from being wasted and maximize the yield and output. And of course also deliver on a future changing consumer demand. The way we believe we can excel within these 2 fast-growing areas is really through our already leading market position. So clearly, it's well, of course, we have the long-term ambitions, but it's also important for us that these are funded on already existing strong market positions today. In terms of market share, you see all the 4 main areas we're working on today. It's shown here. Actually, we are the dominant player within all our fields. The way Tomra has succeeded throughout the years is that really we have focused on our core competences, being the sensor-based technology and the software and digital solutions to really be able to process the vast amount of information in an efficient manner. So this is our core strength, and although we would want to expand our offerings or enter into new segments of growth, that still need to be funded utilizing our core capabilities. We're happy to say that this has proven to work over the years. We can demonstrate a solid track record with a compounded growth rate of more than 10% the past 10 years. And we couldn't have done this without our people. So clearly our people, they are our most important valuable assets. And I'm proud to say that working in Tomra, it's meaningful and it's motivating to know that we are actually doing something good. Now, if I try to place our solutions and offerings in a bigger context, based on some, of course, it's based on calculation methodology, we can show that every year we're actually helping our customers in the value chain to reduce some 17 metric ton of CO2 being emitted. Now, this is actually equivalent to about 40% of all the CO2 emission generated in Norway. And then if you look at what we do through our reverse vending solutions, we're collecting more than 40 billion beverage containers every year. 40 billion, indeed, it's a big number, but if you look at the amount of beverage containers sold annually, this is equivalent to only less than 3% of that total volume. So clearly there is a long way to go. But of course, on the good side, this also means big opportunities for us. And this is actually equivalent to about 3 million cars driving on the road during 1 year, if you assume that they drive around 10,000 kilometers, each of them. If you look at what we do within recycling, we are actually sorting around 700,000 tons of metals every year. This is equivalent to more than 4,000 Boeing 747s. And to my knowledge, I don't think there are even so many planes for 747 planes. On the food sorting side, we're helping about 5 to 10% of the food, diverting that from going into waste. And this is equivalent to about 25,000 trucks of potatoes. So it's important for us to see that our solutions, they are clearly making an impact. Now, to go a bit deeper into how Tomra is organized today, we have 2 main business units, one being collection solutions and one being sorting solutions. As Roger mentioned, we were founded back in 1972, and then back then we started with a collection solutions business. What this business is about is that we are providing technology, mainly using our reverse vending machines, panteautomater in Norwegian, to help to get the beverage containers returned in a clean way, and thereby also reduce littering and enable high quality recycling. So the bottles actually can become a new bottle again. And then on the sorting side, this business we have added gradually throughout the years. Initially, we started with adding recycling. You can say that what we do within collection and recycling, they are essentially part of the same value chain. First, you collect the material, then you need to process the material. So this is clearly all part of the circular economy. Now we have also added mining, and now the latest part being food sorting. The value proposition there would be to really ensure food safety and ensure high quality of the food material and minimize waste. Now then I will briefly describe each of the main business units for you. And starting with collection solutions. And most of you living in the Nordics, you are obviously familiar with the concept. You have seen a similar machine like this. It has many of the elements that you're familiar with. Of course, it's about the user interface. But what's behind the screen and kind of the in-feed, it also consists of a very important element of the recognition technology, enabling us to detect the right shape, the size, the material type. One machine, in many cases, can take both plastic bottles, it can take steel and aluminum cans. It can also, some cases, take glass. And we can also expand into other material types if needed. And after the bottles being returned, many cases there will also be need to compact the material to enable easier and more cheaper transportation, and we are able to do that behind a wall in a retail store. And ultimately, really, we are acting as a clearinghouse in a bigger context as well, because it's important to emphasize that it's not only it's not only a machine, standalone machine. Actually, we are providing data management tool for the whole deposit system. Meaning usually it's also within markets where you have a legislation imposed, container deposit schemes, pantelov, where you usually find our machines. So this is giving you an overview of where our machines are placed today. So obviously the Nordics, they have been our home market all the way, because the Nordic countries were also the first countries moving. It all started with, well, back in 1972 when we initially founded Tomra. You can imagine the main purpose was to help to automate the collection of glass bottles, because all the glass bottles, they were actually collected back and they were refilled and resold again. So it was a natural need. But then over the years, gradually, the consumption have shifted towards more plastic bottles, and then usually the value of the material have never been so high on its own to justify the cost of collecting it voluntarily. So that's why this resulted in a lot of littering, people just throwing the bottles everywhere in the street, and ultimately that leaking into the oceans and also leaking into our food value chain. So then there were some foresighted governments that clearly wanted to do something about this, and then they established what we call this deposit legislation, and then mandating take back of beverage containers. The deposit legislation, it's in its simplest form. It has two main elements. The government, they will place a producer responsibility on those that are selling the beverages, meaning usually it's the beverage companies that actually needs to take this responsibility, not since they are the ones selling the bottles, they also need to actually make sure the bottles, the afterlife, after use of the bottles. The second element is that the government will usually dictate some mandatory or somewhere where the consumers are eligible to actually return the bottles. And historically, that has actually been most often the retailers, because the consumers are mostly buying these beverage containers through us within retail store. Now you also see that Germany and some countries around there, they have also implemented deposit schemes, along with about 10 states in US and Canada. And now more lately also the states in Australia have one by one introduced deposits. The beauty here is that every scheme are different. There's different deposit value, pant, different material types being included, and then different detailed requirement from the scheme. So meaning we actually need to tailor our solutions to each of these deposit schemes. What I can briefly say is that in these existing markets, we actually have a rather stable operations, meaning if you go into a store in Norway, you will probably already see an RVM in every store. And then Tomra has overall more than 70% market share globally. We sell our machines to these retailers, and we also offer to service the machines. So service concept, having a well-established service network is an important element. But then with this, actually this also enables a very high recurring revenue for Tomra. So that's also, of course, the positive thing. But then on the other hand, our existing markets, they are not generating substantial growth neither. Again, there are not so many new retail stores opening up, and you just cannot sit and wait for that to happen. So meaning for us, it's also in collection solutions, a very important element is to look for new potential deposit markets to grow into. Now, what is one of the most important drivers here, just to give an example, is the EU's single-use plastic directive, which was formally passed through all the legislative bodies in 2019. And within that directive, EU is targeting up to 90% collection rate of all the plastic bottles by 2029. And then they also want to have minimum amount of recycled content in every new bottle that is being sold, 25% by 2025 and 30% by 2030. What this means, what does it mean really, having 90% collection targets? Now you see this graph is illustrating return rates for different markets. If you take Germany as an example, actually they achieve around 98% return rate. Norway, we are also above the 90% mark set by EU. But then if you look at the right hand of the scale, take UK and France as an example, although they are also indeed developed countries, the return rate, they are seldom above 50%. So clearly there is really a long way to go. And then obviously, if you don't do any changes, it's very difficult just to bring the collection rate up to 90%. That's why deposit legislation is seen as a very efficient tool of reaching these ambition levels. One example being Lithuania. You see before the introduction of deposit, the return rate were only about 34%, and only within less than 2 years, the collection rates, they increased to above the 90% mark set by EU. So of course, this could mean that over the next few years, there will be many potentially new deposit markets in EU opening up for us. And Tomra, now we're doing everything we can to make sure that we are well positioned to capture the growth. So then let me spend some time on sorting solutions as well. So let me see here. Hopefully you see the illustration or the animation. Let me just run it again. You see that the concept of sensor-based sorting is that you have materials usually running on high speed, it's high volume on some kind of transportation belt, or it could be a chute as well for that matter. And then you have the orange boxes there on top. Within that, then these are our sensors. The sensors are scanning and analyzing each and one object. And then we have our in-house developed software applications to actually quickly process this information. And then to determine quickly what you do with the material. So here you see a small air jet mechanism that is blowing the material into the two different bins. So example again, if we use food sorting, this the task here could be that you want to actually sort a bunch of unwashed potatoes. Then you know that along with the potatoes will actually a lot of foreign materials will come along. So then the desired outcome is that in one bin you have all the potatoes, and the other bin there's all the bugs, stones, rocks, soil, the foreign material that you don't want ending up in the other bin. Or it could, for example, be if you are sorting waste, then you actually want to separate the waste into different fractions. That's the only way within mechanical recycling that you can actually enable high quality recycling. So then the result would be that you have maybe the different plastic polymers in the different bins. Within mining, now actually a big part of the operation is to find a precious gemstone. It could be diamond. And then previously the way the mines are doing this is that they are crushing the stones and then to grind it to see if they find a diamond. And of course, then you can actually risk destroying a big diamond. So using our sensors, we can scan through a bigger rock, and then already then you can see if there are actually indeed some valuable gemstone inside that particular rock. So then you can separate those between the other waste rocks. You don't need to process the waste rock, and that can also save you the water and energy usage. Now, and so there are obviously many different companies working with sensor-based technology, and we cannot really say that we have invented any of the sensors, whether it's the X-ray or whether it's the near-infrared. What's really the secret for Tomra is that we have built a rather comprehensive base, common base sensor technology portfolio, and enabling us to cross-use many of these sensors into new applications. So this is giving an example here. Same type of sensor, it can be used within recycling. It can also be applied into new applications of food. So definitely the variety of sensors, that's very important, core competitive strengths of Tomra, in addition to the software element, which is 100% in-house developed. Just to give you an idea of all the vast amount of materials that we're sorting, this is exemplified with food. The main categories we're working with here, it's potatoes, vegetables. We do nuts and dried fruits. On the fresh side, we are number one within blueberries. We sort more than half of all the blueberries produced in the world. We're also a leading position within the citrus fruit and apples. And for each of these applications, you would require different type of sensors, different type of in-feed, different type of combination of sensors. So it's really kind of a very interesting and big universe. Now, I should just quickly add that food sorting, that's the biggest part of Tomra sorting today. It accounts for around 60% of the revenue within sorting, and then recycling is a bit more than 30%. So those are the two main applications that we work with. So this illustration shows a material recovery facility. So typically the household waste that we are throwing away, if it's processed in the ideal way, it can end up in these kind of facilities. Now you see the orange boxes. They are all the Tomra sensors. One thing is that it's important that our sensors, you see, we are not delivering a complete facility. Like you have some of the belt, you have the in-feed, the steel, these things, they are not necessarily delivered by Tomra. But we deliver the sensors that are really considered the heart and brain of every process. And in order to achieve the optimized result, we're also helping often to design the whole process flow, and we are advising the customers how to set up their facilities. So this is important to emphasize. We are not necessarily a turnkey player, and we are staying true and core to our sensor-based technology. Coming to an end of my brief introduction, as I said, we can show a solid track record. The growth for the past 10 years has been more than 10% on the group level organically. And then we have been able to maintain a rather stable gross margin. And of course, we also aim to contribute value to our shareholders. For the coming years, in 2018, when we had our latest Capital Markets Day, we also announced some financial targets. And again, following up on our historical growth, we believe that we should be able to achieve a minimum 10% CAGR for the next 5 years as well. And the bottom line, right now, we are not at 18% yet. We're around 15%. So it's also important for us to be able to lift the margins even more. The best way here is really if we achieve our top line target, that will be the most important tool to also reach the bottom line targets. We also aim to have a consistent dividend payout policy, paying out between 40 to 60% of the earnings per share. We know that, as we briefly described, there are definitely very strong megatrends for Tomra, meaning also strong growth prospects. In order to grow, we also need to invest, and that's why it's important for us to be prudent when it comes to our capital structure, knowing that there might be need for more capital spending. Although we are prepared to leverage on our balance sheet, we still want to maintain what you call the investment grade profile, although we're not rated, but indicating the solidity and robustness of the company. And also to discipline it ourselves, we have also set a return on capital employed target for all the new projects that we are evaluating. So all the projects then also need to deliver a minimum 20% return on capital employed. So this is the long-term targets for us. I think I will stop there, and then happy to take questions from you, Roger.
Yes, thank you very much, Bing, for your presentation of Tomra. This first part is now concluded, and in a minute or two, we will go on to the second part, the Q&A session. The Q&A session will be held in Norwegian, so stay put.